Hello and welcome to this parent information session on the oral language area of narrative. My name is Bronte Doubleman, one of the members of the speech pathology team at Peel Language Development School, and I'll be going through this short video with you today. I would like to start with an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, where Noongar people performed age-old ceremonies of storytelling, music, dance and celebration, and where they cared for the lands and the waterways. We acknowledge and pay respect to the elders, past and present, and acknowledge those of the future, for they hold the memories, traditions and hopes for all Aboriginal Australians. Always was, always will be. The following will explain the concept of narrative development and how your child's narrative skills can be supported at home. I will also show you a resource that we use at Peel to support our students' narrative development that is great to use at home as well. Oral text or narrative is an umbrella term that relates to the telling and retelling of a series of events. It is an everyday skill that encompasses procedures and explanations, so this includes telling or retelling how you do something, recounting events, so something you've experienced, and that includes sharing news, and telling stories. Stories are an important form of communication, like when we share a meaningful moment from our life. So when we teach children how to tell stories, we teach them to become better communicators. Your child's individual language plan includes goals for their narrative development. Goals highlighted in yellow are the goals your child is currently working on. At the top you can see there's a section for sequencing, and lots of students will have a sequencing goal, starting simple, which then progresses to longer and more complex sequences. And we'll often practice sequencing things like procedures, including craft and cooking, as well as pictures from a familiar story. It is also really important to teach our students how to organise a story in such a way that they can retell it and it making sense to others. So common goals that assist with this include exploring simple story structure elements. So that's who, where, when and what. And then moving on to more complex structures, so having a clear beginning, middle and end. And for our older students, clearly identifying the problem in the story, as well as the character's plans and the solution to solve the problem. As the children's storytelling skills progress, their narratives will become richer as they learn to add details such as direct speech between characters and using more descriptive language. So you may see goals related to story content, characters' feelings, and the use of story-like features. Here are some ideas that you can use at home to support your child's narrative skills. Book sharing. Reading books with your child is a great activity to support their narrative development. You don't have to read it word for word. You can talk about the pictures and follow your child's interests, particularly for younger children, to keep them engaged. You can use the story cue cards, and I'll show you these on the next slide, to talk about who was in the story, where and when it happened. And for older children, you can see if they can identify the problem and the characters and attempts to solve the problem. News telling. News telling is a really valuable tool for practicing oral narrative skills. I have previously added object-based news telling cue cards in the semantics parent information video, but I've also added them at the end of this video. Practicing news with your child before their news day will assist in their confidence, the structure and content they provide when telling news. Everyday activities such as cooking or craft. These are great activities for talking about the steps you follow. It can be as simple as making breakfast in the morning, so making toast for example. First we put the bread in the toaster, then we wait for it to cook. When it pops up we put it on a plate, then we use a knife to spread some butter and jam on the toast, and last of all we get to eat it. So you can talk about the ingredients, the materials or any utensils you use, and you link the steps together using joining words like first, then, next, after that and finally. And this helps the child learn to sequence events and organise their thoughts in a logical manner. For older students, we can encourage them to retell stories, so things like TV shows, movies, family events. You can use the cue cards, which I'll show in a minute, to help prompt them. And you can encourage them to use their imaginations to make up their own stories as well. So a fun narrative game to play is taking turns saying a line or a sentence of a story each. So this is a fun way you can create stories together, and generally it does create a nice bonding experience with a bit of laughter as well. For our younger students, you can use puppets or their own teddies and make up stories for them to be involved with too. This is a copy of our narrative cue cards we use at Peel. Your child will use these throughout their whole time with us, so they'll become familiar with them all. And these are great to use during book sharing or when you are retelling a story with your child. You can ask your child questions such as who was in the story, or where did the characters go, or what was the problem in the story, for example. The younger students typically work on the simple who, where, when, what elements, and as they progress through their goals, they will learn to include more specific information about the problem, plan, attempts to solve the problem, and the character's thoughts and feelings. So you can check your child's ILP narrative goals to see what cue cards will be helpful for them to use, or you can always check in with your classroom teacher as well and ask. As mentioned previously, these are the object-based news telling cue cards that you can practice telling news with your child before their news day. You don't need to use all of the cue cards, but choose a couple to help your child structure and provide more information in their news. These can also be used to describe any objects around the house as well. And they might even enjoy telling you news and pretending you are the student at school as well. So it can be quite an enjoyable activity to do together. Thank you for your time. I hope you found this video useful. I will provide copies of the cue cards underneath the video link for you to download. If you do have any questions regarding the content of this video, please contact your child's classroom teacher or a member of the speech pathology team at Peel. Thank you.